Hello, everybody. Welcome to the show. Today, we have a wonderful guest with us, Mr. Henrik. And Henrik is an author, and he just wrote a trilogy called the Rise Up series, Rise Up Trilogy. And I'm really excited to read it and to dive into it. But tell us a little bit about your trilogy and a little bit about yourself as well.
Okay. Well, this is a Rise Up Trilogy is a story of three best friends at um, at the threshold of adulthood, and it's and they are like there's Hashim, Alex, and Mariam, and wanted to write about actually the things that worry most about young people nowadays, and that's climate change, animal rights, and political and corporate corruption.
Mhm.
So I did take very heavy themes into this, and I wanted them to be facing the or confronting the real life issues. I mean, nowadays it's you hear it from everywhere that people are very kind of downtrodden also about all the worries and the threats of this of climate change, and I wanted to give some kind of hope in that, and encourage people to be activists,
Mhm.
that in a lot of different ways with little gestures you can be part of this change, and to bring in a better world to everybody, and make sure that we are still here after 100 years.
Mhm. So let's start with climate control first and climate change. When we're looking at that, and if you look at it from a young adult, young person perspective, what can individuals do to kind of get involved with helping out with climate control?
Well, I think like the easiest and fastest what you can do is to become vegan, because so much of the let's if we talk about water use, or we talk about the heating of the planet, and all these issues stems from the diet that we eat, and that's and also the big part of this is it's not only good for the climate, but it's also good for the animals, because we have to start to understand, like, if people are very close to their pets like dogs, but cows and chickens are the same. There's no difference. Say, if you, my what changed me, actually what turned me vegan was, we had a dog. Her name was Ella, and she was this beautiful, smart Japanese Spitz. And and I had, before that, I've been already vegetarian for 25 years, and but she made like the final push for me when I realized that she feels exactly the same things that I do, and she was an intelligent animal. So why would I make a difference between a cow and dog? Because the milk producing cows live in horrible surroundings, and the milk that we drink is meant for their calves, their babies, but their babies are taken away from them. So this kind of idea that the cows have to suffer so much, and I could feel what my Ella was feeling, and thinking about that there are millions, hundreds of millions, billions of animals who are being killed every year for our pleasure, for our diet, was just too much for me to take. So, and it's also, but there's so many different uh, perspectives to this. It's not only, of course, good for the climate or animals, but it's good for us too. I mean, most of the most of the what we here in the West, what we suffer from, the diseases like cancers and then high cholesterols and all these things derive from meat eating.
Mm,
So if you want to have uh, like a express start to saving climate, go vegan. But I understand it's hard and it's not easy, and we are so used to our diets, and food is our comfort food, and it takes time to make the decision. It took me a
mhm,
long time to make this decision. So give yourself time, and what is important also here is that you feel it in your heart, because if you don't feel it in your heart, you become condescending, and you don't spread love around. You just spread ire and judgment. And
mhm,
so I don't I have to I want to make clear that, it's this is not about virtue signaling or trying to be virtuous with, but it is that, try to listen to your heart, and your heart will take you there where you need to go.
Uh, I think it's interesting because a lot of people tend to, especially nowadays in the younger communities, tend to be shifting more towards veganism and a more vegetarian lifestyle. Even if it's not about climate control and animal rights, it just seems that there's a natural pull to that. Why do you think that is? Do you think there's some type of shift in consciousness or something going on?
I think that the young generation are a lot more aware of many things, and they are a lot more sensitive
Mhm,
also, and and they are very smart. And for me, what inspired me actually to write this series was that I was 15 years. I worked as 15 years as a volunteer in a Red Cross youth shelter, and I just saw there that which I had forgotten in over the years after my own adolescent years, that they're so smart, and they can uh, and so compassionate. And I think a lot of this smartness and the compassion that we have as human beings when we come to this world, it kind of dilutes over the years as we try to gain more money or career or whatever acceptance that we desperately want or something like that. And yeah, so that's kind of a I see that the new generation, that gives me great hope that the change is
mhm.
coming actually.
Interesting. It's interesting that you say, how as we get older, our compassion and kind of love starts to get a little bit more diluted. Do you find that the younger generation holds on to that whimsical nature a little bit longer?
Yeah, but also because I don't think that the young generation are any more so career driven,
Mm,
or they are more finding pleasure in smaller things, and they are not going after the big American dream to get rich quick. And of course there are some, and of course there's the whole social media thing and all that, but that's still at the core. I think they are a lot more kind of 2 feet on the ground
mm.
than the earlier generations might have been.
Why do you think that is? Because it definitely just seems that when I look at maybe, like, my grandparents and great-grandparents, it was very much, almost like work yourself into the ground, and
Yeah.
when I look at my own parents, it's a my own parents personally they're very, like, chill people, it's kinda funny, but, you know, so when I see other people around that age, they're very much, hustlers and hard grinders, but you get the younger generation, yes, we just want a
Yeah.
chill, relaxed life. Where do you think that transition came from?
I think if we start from the Second World War,
Mm,
is that there the men came back from the war, and they have kind of lost faith in humanity. So they had all this anger and this restlessness, and they channel it uh, to building building new things, and building careers, and a lot of good, of course, came out of it. But also it was a very narrow world, and the people were not uh, were not so open to different ideas, and you had to be, you stayed in your place, and there was no social movement so much, and you stick to your own. And as we come further, or to today's time, this kind of opening up has been happening for I think for the past 60 years. And that's it's getting better and better. you
yeah,
know and I think also the quality of people life, they might not have, um, I don't know if the millennials had better economically, I don't know, maybe they had, but that is not anymore the deciding factor. And people want to have substance in their life, and they
mm,
want to care about things. And there, I think that's in US it's like maybe one third or something that are either totally plant based or very close to being totally plant based. And that's a huge difference if we think about the older generation. So it's that's why I'm quite optimistic.
I'm optimistic as well. A lot of people say that the world is on a downward spiral, and personally, I see it the other way around.
Yeah,
I just think that a lot of the, let's call it negativity, is being exposed.
yeah,
And after the exposure, just like after any storm, you get the most beautiful flowers, and everything's
yeah,
just gonna be wonderful when it all passes.
yeah. No, but if we think about a spiritual path, that's what it is. We
Mm,
face hardships, and then we start to see what is important, and that means shedding a lot of layers of unneeded unneeded wants and desires and whatever,
mm,
and we become more like our own person. And 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 it can happen also in a whole generation.
yeah. So, what was that journey like for you? Because I know, in the time that before you started writing this book, you did a lot of traveling around, and you got to meet a diverse group of people. So, did that help to kind of shed light onto the diversities in society?
Yes, well, I was actually, my father was a philosopher, and our home, we had a lot of discussions, and early on I read serious books, and kind of my inspiration was the life of Siddhartha Gautama. And at the 12, I was maybe 12, 11 when I read about him. And one thing that I realized from that was that it's not important how we are different from the others, but look for what we have in common. And that has been kind of my guiding light. And I realized I was born in Helsinki and lived quite in a bubble. I went to school that my parents have founded, and all that. And it was just too comfortable. So
Mm,
I decided I want to go out to the world. And at 14, I went to boarding school in France. And the weekends I spent in Paris at my mom's friend's place. And then she had a North African boyfriend,
mm.
Tunisian boyfriend, and kind of exposed me to the North African Paris. And I was blown away. And that's a path I'm still on.
Interesting.
Kind of to going exploring and living in different countries, and learning languages and trying to understand people better.
Mm. I wanna dive a little bit more deeply into that because I think it's so important for people to get out and immerse themselves in others' cultures. But before we do, we're gonna take a really quick commercial break.
Okay.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back. So, before we left, we were talking about the importance of enveloping yourself in other people's cultures. Now, you once wrote that we as a people need more stories that evoke diversity, friendship, human decency, and the courage to listen to one's heart. So, how are those themes and ideas expressed in your upcoming book?
Well, it's actually it came after I have written the book that I came about this idea, and because I realized that this is what the my characters were experiencing, and that's what they were, and nowadays there's so much negativity and polarization and hate and greed not only social media but on all media, that it's sometimes we get lost, this in despair, and but I think every person has that. It's just that gets clouded over by this onrush of all this commercial stuff and news and everything. So and it's especially this kind of decency, human decency, and that's what I have found in the young generation. This decency is that it's kind of their guide and light more than it was in previous generations.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's interesting how the younger generation just when you talk about human decency, it doesn't seem like there's as much bullying. It doesn't seem
Yeah.
like there's that much separation from like a social perspective. It seems very welcoming and all encompassing.
Mm.
I think it's beautiful. I
Yes.
think it's wonderful.
Yeah, yeah, and I think like high school is not anymore so much about being the most popular in that sense, in the old sense, but it is like being kind,
Mm.
because actually I think nowadays the people who are kind are the most popular among the young people. It's not anymore that you have to be very witty and or rude or something, but it is the kindness that sets you kind of as an example, and people want to get to know you.
For sure, we were talking about how um, this is just more of the spiritual aspects of things and where our society is headed. And personally, I feel that we're going towards this more positive paradigm shift.
Yeah. Oh, I definitely agree. And it's, although I've given up a hope of a change in the older generations, but I think I can still have some impact on the younger generation. Not that I need to change anything, but I just can like support them and give them, yeah, some ideas. But it's kind of that it sounds horrible, but that when the older generation go away and the younger generation, so there must be a big change coming. So like you don't have to lose your hope. I think that's very important, because then if you lose hope, then we don't have faith, and then we don't have nothing to believe in.
One thing I found about the older generation, and I actually work at the hospital. and a lot
mm,
of my coworkers are, between the ages of, like, 50 and 70, so it's really interesting because we had the opportunity to have these type of conversations and discussions, and,
mm,
I found that they're a lot more receptive than I thought, and I felt that it was probably just my own judgments thinking that, "Oh, I'm gonna be judged for having these different ideas," and
mm,
ended up not necessarily being the case. With that being said, though, there are plenty of other individuals whom really don't even care to hear my perspective and, uh,
mm.
the way that I choose to see the world more in a positive light and not necessarily wanting to, work a 9 to 5 for the rest of my life.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, but it's kind of that people close off in certain way, when they cannot deal with the uh, failures, or when it's a kind of idea in Buddhism. There's an idea that where our suffering comes from. It comes from our expectation, and I think that's why I think that. New generations, they will suffer less because their expectations are not out of this world. They are not anymore so materialistic, and it's more about little things and finding community, friendships, and these kind of things where you are more real, and of course when you are more real, that you get people recognize you for being real, and then you get a lot more positive feedback from people. The vibes, if you're closed off, you don't get these vibes. So, and,
Mm.
then you suffer.
Yeah. Do you feel that, um, maybe there should be, like, a gap that can be bridged between the younger and older generations?
No, I don't know. No, but yeah, I mean, there is still all people in the older generation that have hope too, but it's dwindling. Let me, yeah, put it this way. But I just I have this 98-year-old friend here who I
Mm,
take out for walks, and he's still, his mind is still very bright, and although his physics are failing him, or the body is failing him, but he's still curious, and he's funny, and I mean, that's not, you don't have to be always funny, but he has this kind of a, I don't see him as a 98-year-old. I see him sometimes as a 9-year-old,
mm,
because it's just the what he gives out to the world is so compelling, and he hasn't he hasn't lost uh, his hope, and maybe because of he's like what he is. He has so many friends helping him out, at his own late years, and
mm. Well, we only have a few minutes left. Is there anything you wanna leave the audience before we go?
yeah, but what I said already in the beginning is that I think it is important to you cannot change world in one swipe. Do little things. It's like you don't have to go all vegan tomorrow or anything. Just take one day off. You don't eat any meat products, or go to see your grandma, or just do some good things, help people out, and I can say for sure that your life is going to be better, and just keep on it, and the change will come.
Wow. Yeah, I 100% agree with you. It's the smallest incremental changes that have the most lasting effects in our life. But
Yes, so definitely it
I wanna
has to start somewhere.
yeah, you have
It's
to start somewhere. One of my
First
other
step.
yeah, one of my other favorite sayings is, "The journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step."
Yeah.
Love that. That's great. I wanna thank you so much for coming on, Mr. Henrik. I truly enjoyed having this conversation with you, and I hope that everyone reaches out and reads your book. I can't wait to dive into it myself. But just,
All right.
yeah, it just sounds great. And thank you all for tuning in today. Everybody have a great
Okay, thank you very much.
day.
All right.
Bye.
Bye bye.